really lead with purpose, to own your own voice, and to find strength in the unexpected? Well, on this special episode of Finding the Upside, I'm revisiting 3 powerhouse conversations with women who are redefining what leadership looks like and sounds like, and doing it on their own terms. First, I have Marla Corson, whose journey reminds us that leadership isn't about a title. It's about showing up with clarity and heart, even when the path shifts beneath you. Then Julie McManus opens up about how embracing the unexpected isn't just brave, it's a gateway to growth, meaning, and a life you never saw coming. Finally, Tricia Brouk, an award-winning director and speaker coach who breaks down why your voice isn't just important, it's essential in this moment, and how influence begins the moment you choose to speak. Whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting to hear the call for something more, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. So Marla, as I said in the intro, talk to me about your journey. How did you get from your corporate position to here in owning your own consulting business? And what was that journey like? Just give us a kind of condensed version of what your path has been.
Well, if I just take my path from corporate to where I am today, and I actually left Amazon the end of 2022, so I was the very end of 2022, and I actually went to work for another company for just a couple months in 2023.
Okay.
Not a great choice. But the good thing of that is that I think that opened me up to saying, what other things do I really want to do? And where do I really want to be? And what are my... I really believe that we have some innate talents and gifts that we should use. And I spent a lot of time, thinking about that. And fortunately I could. I didn't have to be, like I had been literally on call 24/7, 365 for the last 20 years in the world of safety. So it was nice to take a step back from that. And I almost felt like I was almost detox, I tell you, because of the intensity of the work environments that I've been in. And as you grow in leadership positions, it's a little bit more and more. So it was almost like a detox.
Wow.
And then I decided May of this year that, I'll start my own LLC. I will consult myself and I'll speak. And some things that I have wanted to do, but have thought, can I really? Should I? Maybe not. And then just actually was talking with a friend and a colleague, and I think we were at the shipyard or something in Philadelphia, and saying, why don't we do this? And we had both left Amazon at the same time, and we said, we should.
Yeah.
And so just did.
You know what, I'd love to follow up on just a couple things that you mentioned. You talked about, and I, like you, spent 20 years in corporate America and, for the last 15 years or so with my own business, but that's a transition. And when you're used to that programming and that, model and that way you work, you talked about needing a detox, because in that type of role, most leadership roles, honestly, but you were in safety and compliance, correct? So, obviously, there's things that happen all the time. You're trying to keep people safe. And what did you have, 3,500 people?
3,500 people on my team.
On your team,
and then we had... nearly 300 warehouses across the U.S. and Canada, nearly 800, probably over 800,000 people, associates at any given time. So it was a huge responsibility. Yeah.
But I hear that a lot in your corporate role. Most corporate role, you're so in the trenches that you don't have the time to kind of sit back and then think, reflect. And that's a problem, it's a blind spot for good leadership. But so it's interesting how you termed that you needed a detox, and that is what allowed you to kind of breathe. Again, fortunate that you could do that, right? But sometimes I think, that's the upside, for lack of a better word, of transitioning out of a W-2 position and a salaried position into something independent, is that you have more freedom. You have more of the ability to kind of think about, what do you want to do? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? So I love that, and that's actually really common to a lot of people that I talk to that have had that that path. Tell me, what are the things that you think, because I do want to touch on this for others. You said that there were things that you thought, I have talents, and could I do this? What do you think it is that causes us to doubt what we are possibly capable of? I mean, I have my own feelings, but I'd love to hear from your perspective what you think.
Yeah. I think it's a couple things. I think we get so programmed. I think we're actually pre-programmed. Almost our whole system here in the United States, and when I'm blessed to, be a U.S. citizen, of course. So I'm not downing that. But the system that we have, you go through this, structured school, and then for me, I was in a structured military, and then you into a structured job, and it's everything. It is designed for progression, and you either are progressing or you're moving forward or you're falling behind. And by personality was just very much achieve. And I think in that process, you begin to see the things that you're good at, and you move that and you grow. And obviously, I had those things and had great successes, but I think you get so ingrained into that you don't allow yourself to step back and say, wow, when I did that, or when I was engaged with that, mentoring program or this development, helping someone or whatever it is, you say, wow, I felt really good about that. That really, lights something up inside me. So I think we have these flashes all along the way, but we're so programmed to work the way that we do.
Yeah.
But we don't take the time to listen. And I think that sometimes, and even for me, I think I was so engaged in what I was doing. And safety is so important because you're literally responsible for the lives of people. And I took that so seriously that I was so intense into that I wasn't allowing myself to think about other things. And because it's always the path, you just stay on it.
Yeah.
When you took a moment to reflect of maybe something else, you just jump right back in it, and there's another thing to achieve, and you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And so I think it's just the following that path, following that kind of design structure that most of my lifetime has been about. And not taking time to just say, do something different. And then also just believing enough. I think I've always believed in myself, but being willing to just say, you know what, I'm going to make just a complete change.
Yeah.
And it's different.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Yeah. Well, I also think that, and I had a guest on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking a lot about this. I think that in our culture, in this country at least, we are so focused on what we do. And that becomes our identity.
Yes.
It's not about who we are, right? It's kind of baked in as you were talking about. It's this, how we work, this hustle, this grind. And listen, I had to reconcile myself. The hustler got me where I am. But I had to unravel. It took me a long time, honestly, 15 years being in my own business to break that. What you said about the next project. We've got to make space for reflecting and learning and the emotions and the things we feel when we did that, how we feel good. It's kind of anti-business culture, right?
100%.
We don't make space for that, and we need to.
So one of the consulting jobs led to, they actually offered me, I was 33, and they called me like 2 years after I left. They're like, hey, you want to come be a vice president for us? And I'm like, oh, sure. So I moved to Virginia. That took me to all sorts of different places as well. I've traveled the U.S. And then right now, myself and a bunch of other people were laid off from a company that I thought I loved, and I thought I was going to stay there forever. And that was such a punch in the gut. I don't wish it on anyone, and all the people going through that right now. It's such a, horrible experience. I question my self-worth and what am I going to do, and wallow in self-pity, and no one wants you, no one loves you. But I picked myself up. A friend recommended my me to this other company in a 2-month contract. I just celebrated my year anniversary, and as far as I know, it could be a couple years. So it's just, I think the important thing for me is to, it was like, say yes, because that got me to South Africa, and say yes, and that got me to Brazil, and yes, got me to Peru, and so it's, you don't necessarily know what's going to be on the other side of yes, but I think saying yes is important in your career because it'll open up a ton of doors for you.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to follow up a couple things you said. First of all, one of the things that we do my intention in this podcast and specifically this series, One Tough Chick, is really highlighting strong women who have followed their path, whether they've encountered barriers, whether they've, had lots of opportunities where they've said yes to, and really just to highlight and shine a light on that, empowered females to show other women what's possible, right? So I love that you say, you said yes, and your journey is one that's so varied and so interesting, and I think you're right that that's a lot of what leads you to the next place. And I think myself included, I've done things myself that I said yes to. I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I went for the ride, right? Mm-hmm. And looking back, don't regret that at all. It's been such a blessing. But the other thing I wanted to follow up on, because I think it's timely right now, I shared the same background. I worked 20 years in corporate America. I was with a company for 10 years. And very surprisingly, I got laid off. And I went through the same thing. There's a lot of people who are experiencing this right now. It's awful because you question, what did I do wrong? What is my self-worth? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? It's terrible. And, I wish that we could get back to a place where we don't have that as a standard, operating procedure in companies. Because that wasn't always the case. That was layoffs and such were, reserved for hard, extraordinary circumstances. And now it's like standard operating procedure. So anybody who's going through that, I think I could be a testament to this, as well as you, Julie, and many others. I've started my own company. I started in consulting. I started getting some gigs, and I was like, okay, I think I have my own business here. So it's possible, right? And it's a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
You.
No, go ahead.
I think more than anything, it's the punch in the gut and the self-worth that the money thing stinks. The self-worth is horrible though, and all too often our jobs are us.
Yes.
And so you're no longer needed, but other people need you, and you need you. And so don't, I know I could just stand up here and say, oh, you'll be fine. It's going to hurt, but don't let it damage you. Yeah. Figure out, find the mentors, find the people to help you, find somebody to help lift you up and move on, because that's what you need to do.
100%. And I also think, it's so true what you're saying, and so critical to have these messages out there for others to share, because I know when I went through that, there was a lot of shame around it. Like, I'd never been let go of a job in my life. And, really, you have to take yourself outside of that. And what you said, what I really want to follow up on, because I've talked about this with some other guests as well. We have a problem in this country where we focus on what we do is who we are, and that's not the case, right? We put so much weight on that, of the job, of our role, of our this. That's a small portion of who we are as a person. Right. And it's difficult to keep that top of mind in the culture and kind of the normalization of that in our society in this country. Yeah. But we have to start normalizing those conversations, that you are not who you are is not what you do. It's what you do. Correct. Right? Yes. So, and you're so much more than that. And that's where the self-worth also comes in, and your value. One of the things that I love to ask leaders like you is leadership is also a passion of mine. Julie and I are very aligned. I don't think there's any mistake that the people that you attract around you have similar, beliefs, principles, and so on. So we're super aligned in terms of leadership and or background and whatnot. But one of the things that I think is important to discuss is, what was your journey to leadership like being a woman? Were there, how did you establish yourself as a leader? And how did you do that? And what barriers did you face?
Okay, so how did I establish myself as a leader? I think I just automatically, I just lead people.
Like a natural style.
Yeah, like I'm in the grocery store, and I was in New York last weekend, and I was helping people find things. You could see people lost, and so naturally, it comes natural to me, and I love it.
Tricia has written many books, influential voice. Being an influential voice, your voice and your message matters. Tell me if I got that tagline.
Your voice matters, yeah.
Okay, your voice matters. And talk to me a little bit about that book and what that helps others do. And obviously it probably parlayed into this journey that you said to help others. But talk to me a little bit about that and share a little bit about the book.
The book happened, and it happened because I let go of what I thought I should be doing. I was shopping around a book proposal about how to be a public speaker, because that's what people wanted me to write.
Oh, okay.
And I had all these publishers say, that's fine, but it's not really speaking to us. And what I realized, Maria, was I didn't really want to write a book about public speaking, which is why it wasn't getting picked up. So I went back to the drawing board and just sort of thought about, what do I care about? What do I want to talk about? What do I want to share? And when George Floyd's murder happened, I sat down and wrote chapter 1, sent it to a publisher on Friday, and got a book deal on Monday.
Wow.
And that was because I spoke from my heart and from my truth about what it means to give voice and to speak with dignity, curiosity, humility, respect, and love, and how that wasn't being taught from the Hill. And my desire to unite humanity through speech is real, and I do believe all voices matter, which means writing this book was an opportunity to teach people how to speak with dignity, so that if you don't share the same opinion, you can still have respect and love for one another.
I love that. And I love the story of how that came to be, and what, you and I have had many conversations about that. We're so aligned in terms of the purpose and the energy behind it. It's funny because all the years that I've worked in leadership and teaching leadership, it kind of was like, until I connected with the type of leadership and the values, very similar to your story, about what I wanted to instill, and building places of belonging and inclusion. And that's when it got like the oomph and lit me up. And I think it also speaks to more people than like your story about the book, how then it has an impact because it's emotional, it's from the heart, and it connects to people.
Thank you. It does. And we are very aligned when it comes to our purpose and our intention for being and the legacy that we want to leave. And I also think that by sharing my personal story vulnerably inside of the book about how I use my voice, it gives people not only permission to use theirs, but it reminds them that they don't have to be on a big stage.
Right.
Being an influential voice doesn't mean you have to be at the Barclays Center.
Right.
It means you understand when you're sitting across the kitchen table from your kids or your partner, that everything you say to them can either impact them in a good way or a bad way. Yeah. It can either instill love or hate. When you're across the table from your employees in the boardroom, how do you communicate? What's the lasting legacy that you want to leave? And then, of course, in community.
Yeah.
I live in New York City, and there's 3 billion people on this small island. However, I know everybody in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I know the shoemaker and the florist and the restaurateurs, and I make a point to say hello when I walk by. And that's what it means to be an influential voice.
Yeah. I love that. And, we've talked a little bit about, and I'd love to kind of get into this conversation about what it means today to be an influential voice. And I love that you brought up that you don't have to be on big stages because, again, we're very aligned in that as well, as in terms of even in the work with leadership, you don't have to be at the top. You don't have to be the CEO to have an impact, right? You can impact those around you to the left and the right of you by caring for others and touching them and connecting with them in a very human way. So what does it mean today in everything that's going on? What is the most important, and what does it mean to be an influential voice in your daily life and what you do?
In your daily life, it means, first of all, knowing what your values are and making sure that they're not values that have been brought along from your family or from your past. Reevaluate what your values are right now and align with those values and stay consistent with those values. And when you are clear on what that heartbeat, that North Star is, then anytime you veer off, because we're humans, we're flawed, we're going to make mistakes.
Sure.
Anytime you veer off, you course correct by aligning to your values. And it also means not letting fear lead. There's a lot of uncertainty right now in the world, not just in the United States, but in
everywhere.
the world. I have a team, several of my team members are Canadian, and there's a big election happening the day that we're recording this. And so using your voice, not allowing fear to lead, being comfortable with uncertainty and impermanence and detaching from the outcomes, that is how you start really embodying being an influential voice. And it also means when other people can't speak, you speak for them.
Yeah.
You speak out on behalf of them. You use your voice for good. There's so many people right now who are not able to speak out. And it's my responsibility and it's my calling to use my voice in service of them until it's safe for them to speak out again.
Yeah. Yeah, you touched on so much that I think is heavy on the mind of a lot of people right now. And I agree with you that I think that when I think about why I feel motivated to do that, right, and why I feel so passionate about doing that, about standing up and not falling in line, and where did that come from? I think it's really down to that value of wanting everyone to have a place to belong. And I was in a workshop one time, and we were talking about this very point. That was my point that I got through the exercise. And the question was, you either want that's your passion because you had it, or you didn't. And I had to think about that a little bit. I think that I certainly have had a place of belonging, but I think we all in our journey have felt at times that either we didn't fit in, for whatever reason. And I think that there's a duality in that, for me anyway. And I think it comes from both places. Me acknowledging my ability to always, the times that I did feel like I belonged, but also leaning on whatever that was, of how that felt, and really that reality, what that meant of not feeling like I belonged or not feeling like I fit in, and the pain in that, and having the empathy to extend that to others in all other different kinds of circumstances. So I do believe that is a responsibility that we have as human beings. And I think that so many people, if you say that, they'll go, yeah, I believe in that. But if they're not connected to that's the value that drives them, and they get distracted, and as you mentioned, have been made to be fearful for whatever reason, you can lose sight of that so easily, where you say you believe one thing, but you're doing the complete opposite.
That's such a good point, and I think the belonging and the empathy is such an important highlight, is that when you have felt as though you belong, you're unaware of how to have empathy for those who don't, if you're not conscious of that.
Yeah.
And I do believe that as human beings, we've all been in a situation where we don't feel like we belong, no matter who we are.
3 women, 3 journeys, and a powerful reminder that purpose, voice, and resilience are not destinations, they're daily choices. As you go back into your world today, ask yourself, where am I being called to step up, to speak out, and to let go of the plan and embrace what's unfolding in front of me? If something you heard sparked a shift, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode, start the conversation, and revisit the full interviews with Marla Corson, Julie McManus, and Tricia Brouk for even more wisdom and insights. Transformation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community. And that's right here. Thanks for being here with me on Finding the Upside, and I'll see you next time.